my days. Look who it is. Now you may be wondering, where the fuck have you been? I was just about to unsubscribe to your bitch ass. I've got a good reason, right? If you check the community bullshit on my channel, right, I posted a message where I said I took out my fucking wisdom teeth. So yeah, that's what I did. So I've been all fucking swollen, looking like fucking Quagmire for a good while. Now I'm back, right? I'm fully back. This shit's healed a bit. I don't know if you can see, but ignore this dead fucking, can't even call that a beard. There's a bit of a like I don't know, like a bruising, right? Kinda like a yellow one. I don't know if you can see the shade, but right here I had a big ass bulge or like just liquid, so. But yeah, I'm back now. I'm gonna actually do it again next month, so if I disappear for a while again, you know why. But yeah, let's just skip this bullshit because I'm here for one reason and one reason only. And that is to react to a video. That's what I do on this channel. Let's get straight into what I'm going to be doing today. The worst NASCAR race ever. The 1969 Talladega 500 by the one, the only Slapshoes, who is a channel that I've already reacted to and watched a few times already. But yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna get straight into it. And also, while I was, you know, under the fucking influence of wisdom tooth removal, I actually uploaded a gaming video on my gaming channel. So, you know, if you haven't already, go check that channel out. But yeah, I'm gonna start this shit now because fucking hell, this is a long video. So, phew, let's go.
Talladega Superspeedway has been shrouded in controversy for longer than most race fans today have been alive. You may think this all started in the late 80s with the introduction of the restrictor plate and the advent of pack racing, which led to the inevitable Big One accidents, making drivers and owners alike livid to no end. Some say it goes back even further, to the 1800s, when the Native Americans who lived in this place were pushed out by the U.S. Army during the Trail of Tears.
So this is going to be like a history lesson about this race, right?
Centuries-old stories notwithstanding, the most well-documented story behind Talladega's troubled past goes back to the very first race in September of 1969. What ensues is a tale of
that is a long time ago.
States Department of Defense, of boycotts and opportunities lost, of tire wars and tire failures, of greed and deceit, of workers' rights and of union.
Oh, there is some drama.
Race ever at Talladega Superspeedway, and it was the worst race in NASCAR history.
Shit.
It was humongous. I thought Daytona was big, but then you look at that track, it looks like you could put Daytona inside.
Damn. So it's a big track.
It's pretty horrifying to think that a guy had been out there running on something like that.
We ain't gonna do this. Our neck's out there on the road.
Fucking hat though. Jesus.
This car's gonna be in the race. If you don't drive with somebody else will.
Dude, NASCAR back in the day, man. Just from looking at these videos, like, it was different than today. More of like a, I mean, reckless feel, I'd say. Where it's like things could really fucking go wrong. Talladega. I'm hoping you can't hear that.
This is Talladega Superspeedway, circa 1949. At this point, it isn't a speedway at all. This is Anniston.
What is that?
In the small town of Anniston in Talladega County.
Is that the track?
At this point, it isn't a speedway at all. Originally opened in 1942 as a training
How is that a
for the
track?
United States Army Air Corps during World War II, the post-war years for Anniston Air Base have not been kind. By the time the 1960s roll around, the airfields have fallen into disrepair. But the U.S. Army still needs it, because the Vietnam War is gearing up and they need to run ammo from the Anniston.
It was during the Vietnam War, damn.
Coast. However, the city of Anniston and Talladega County can't afford it. They don't have the money and they don't have the manpower. Enter Big Bill France Sr., current president.
Oh, he looks corrupt, bro. Just look at him.
The biggest, baddest track in the world in South Carolina. There are a few stories surrounding the original idea of the biggest, baddest speedway being built. Some say it's supposed to be built in Raleigh. Other people say somewhere in South Georgia. But to me, this one makes the most sense. Big Bill France wants to build a new track in a big market. He wants it to be even bigger and better than Daytona. So he makes the turns just a little bit steeper, the track just a little bit wider, and the length just a little bit longer. And Greenville, South Carolina is the perfect spot. Just one hiccup with this master plan. South Carolina has blue laws on the books at this time. If you don't know what a blue law is, then good for you. You live in a sensible part of the country. Blue laws are essentially laws passed in heavily Baptist areas that pertain to what kind of activities you can do and not do during the Sabbath. And for Baptists, that is every Sunday of the year. Some of these blue laws are actually still in the books today. Like in some counties in South Carolina, you can't buy beer on Sunday. And to this day, every liquor store in South Carolina is closed on Sundays. But back in the 1960s, they were a lot more all-encompassing. In some places, you couldn't open any kind of business on Sunday. And in most places, you couldn't hold a social or a sporting event on Sunday back then. And that was a statewide law.
That is crazy. That can be a whole state law. Like if it was one shop that had that, or whatever the fuck, then it makes sense. But
Raceway ever became a thing? Well, that was because back in the day they used to run the 500 not on the weekend of Labor Day, but on Labor Day itself, a Monday.
What?
So Big Bill France packs up his stuff and he goes out to look elsewhere. Yep, South Carolina misses out on the biggest, baddest speedway on the planet being built in their state because of damned Baptists. I could have had the craziest speedway in America built in my backyard, but nope, that didn't happen thanks to these jerks. Yet another reason to hate the Baptist church. God, I hate Baptists so much. They ruin everything down here. Well, he needs his track to be near some major markets, southern cities with big populations. He also needs a track to be near an interstate. Scout of his comes through for him. Midway between Atlanta and Birmingham, Interstate 20 is being built, and right next to it,
in Alabama,
with all that nice flat ground right around it. Big Bill agrees with the Department of Defense to pave new runways so long as he can have the old ones. They agree, and the city of Anniston sells the land to Big Bill France on very favorable terms. Everyone wins. Big Bill France gets his land.
I see the construction of it now. I was about to say, that can't be the track, right? Because there's just straight lines. No, it's starting to become an oval.
France hires the same contractors who built I-20 to build his track. Construction has very few hang-ups and gets completed on time, but by design, the completion date runs up dangerously close to opening.
It's crazy how they build these fucking tracks
for VIPs and corporate sponsors, those are just open-air rooms with tables made from pieces of plywood over sawhorses. The patrons of those suites have to wear earplugs on opening weekend. Invitational testing runs, forget about it. The first tests are done on Wednesday, week of show, just 5 days before race day. All the drivers pour into the track that Wednesday, and they're impressed. 0.16 miles longer than Daytona and 12 feet wider, but it feels way more massive than that.
That is a big fucking
the first
track.
guys out on the track report some handling problems.
Holy.
Okay, fine, no biggie. They're using Daytona setups, and this track's a little bit different, so they just need to make some adjustments. They come back to the garage after just a few laps at full speed, and this is what their tires look like. They're shredded. The track might as well have been paved with
was that from one lap?
Other drivers report the same problem.
Or am I
No matter
tripping?
the car, no matter the tire manufacturer, they all have the same issue: bad tires. Now, at
Wait,
that time, NASCAR was
that
in the
ain't
midst
good.
of a full-blown tire war between Goodyear and Firestone. A tire war is a horrible thing for any sanctioning body to go through, and I'm not even sure why they let them happen in the first place. Basically, the sanctioning body, in this case NASCAR, decides they don't like how much money their tire manufacturer is putting up to be exclusive manufacturer in the sport. So NASCAR goes shopping and finds Firestone, who put up a considerable sum to compete against Goodyear in NASCAR. NASCAR teams sign contracts with different tire makers, so you have Goodyear teams versus Firestone teams, and that sounds good, right? Competition is great, right? Well, not in this instance. In order to get an edge over the competition, the manufacturers run up against the razor's edge of safety. A softer tire is more grippy and therefore faster, but lacks durability and falls apart faster.
Okay, yeah,
A harder
that makes
tire
sense.
lacks grip and speed, but lasts longer and is safer. A tire failure is one of the worst accidents a NASCAR driver can have.
That must have
and they typically
fucking
look
hurt.
like this: pretty much head-on impacts with the walls at harsh angles.
Oh, yeah,
Many
that is
drivers up to this
risky,
point
man.
have died in accidents
Taking, like,
a lot
the
like this, and injuries are
maybe
commonplace
better
in NASCAR
tire
in 1969.
to just
Nobody
risk it like
wants
that.
this, but
Nah, I
when winning
don't
is
know.
on the line against safety. Typically, winning takes priority. That's just how people are. The last tire war
Yep.
in NASCAR was Goodyear
That's how it
versus
usually is in
Goodyear. Tire
competitions.
failures were rampant in those years and led to many driver injuries and hospitalizations. Eventually,
44
NASCAR
is it
learned
Lewis
its lesson,
Hamilton?
and there has not been another tire war
Oh,
since. But this is
shit.
1969, and those lessons are being learned in the heat of the moment, here and now, at opening weekend of the first race at the biggest, baddest speedway on the planet. The two tire makers fly in harder compounds overnight from their various warehouses across the country. Thursday comes around and there's still no progress. The tires aren't getting
So
any
what are
better.
the tires
Still
gonna
getting
be the
shredded to
biggest
ribbons. Finally, Friday morning comes around
fuck up
and the
for
drivers
this
have
entire
had it.
thing?
Neither manufacturer can come
Right, I've got a question. I don't know if he said it. Maybe I didn't hear it. But is it because of the track that the tires are fucking up? Like because of the material that they've laid on the track, or is it just the tires being absolutely dog shit? I don't know which one it is, but I'm thinking it might be just the tires in it, because it's a tire war. I'm guessing that this is gonna be about how the tires just fucked up everyone during this race. That's at least what I'm getting a hint of. But I don't know. Let's continue.
That can handle the stress of 2-ton stock car bodies traveling at 190 miles per hour in the 33-degree banks. And that day, Firestone backs out. No driver will get injured or die on their tires. They cancel their contracts and allow teams to run whatever tire they want. Goodyear, however, stands firm. If they can weather this storm, they will win the tire war and be the undisputed tire maker for NASCAR for years to come. As the day goes on, the Goodyear tires aren't faring any better in wear than the Firestones, and soon the drivers start looking to the newly formed Professional Drivers Association to help them out.
That is
Formed
old,
just mere
man.
weeks before the events of this race, the Professional Drivers Association, or PDA for short, is a cooperative of drivers who want a cut of broadcasting rights money, pension program, and healthcare benefits. Now that sounds a bit like a union, but it's totally not. PDA makes sure of this as they never call themselves a union at any point. Besides, they're not a union at all anyway. A normal union of professional athletes like the NFL Players Association or the NFLPA uses collective bargaining to fight for things like salary increases, healthcare benefits, pension programs, and organized strikes if need be. The PDA, on the other hand, vows to fight for salary increases, healthcare benefits, pension programs, and organized strikes if need be. Okay. It might be a union, but still the PDA
sounds a lot
never
like it.
refers to itself as such, due to two reasons. One, union culture is pretty much unheard of in the South at this time. And second, NASCAR is very harsh on drivers who talk openly of unionization. The PDA isn't even the first attempt at NASCAR unionization. In 1961, NASCAR's two most popular drivers, Curtis Turner and Tim Flock, worked with the Teamsters to get NASCAR's first union off the ground, the Federation of Professional Athletes. Big Bill France responds by vowing that any member of the FPA will not be allowed to race in NASCAR. Curtis Turner quickly loses support,
But wait. That's a bit fucking weird to me, though. That's like saying, oh, yeah, you can be in the spot. What? Wait a minute. Is that guy there like the owner of NASCAR? I thought he just built the fucking track. Or is this like the only... Maybe he means you can't drive in NASCAR on this track, maybe. Or is he like the owner of NASCAR? I don't know. Because how could he make that call? Still a bit weird, though. Oh, you try and fight against us. Or you try and, like, demand something. Maybe it could be better safety or whatever the fuck. Nope, you get kicked out of the motorsport. That's a bit fucking weird though. But you know, back in the day, they did it different though. Most people didn't have a say. Yeah, that's a bit fucking weird. It's a bit weird.
as long as he thinks he can. Eventually, Big Bill France uses the nuclear option, as he said he would, and he bans Curtis Turner from the sport for life.
Jesus! For life? Maybe like a race or two to make him learn a lesson, but for life? Yo, what is happening? What is this for edit?
This is not a punitive measure. This is to
Right.
send a message. There will be no talk of unionization in NASCAR, no matter who
Okay.
it is. Big Bill France bans his most popular driver at the height of his career just to make a point. There will be no union in NASCAR
Jesus.
ever. So why does NASCAR have this seek and destroy policy when it comes to unions? Well, it has everything to do with how union works, leverage. Let's take a look at how a normal player strike would usually work in most sports sanctioning bodies. Typically, you have the sanctioning body, let's say the NFL in this case, aligned with team owners. The NFL sets salary caps and determines who can and cannot own an NFL team. If you
Yeah.
own a team, let's just say, for instance, the Buffalo Bills, and try to sell them, you can't just sell them to any random yahoo off the street. The NFL has to approve the new owner. There are only so many teams allowed to compete in the NFL, and the NFL decides who gets to own what team and where that team is located. And if you own that team, you can't move it to a different city without the NFL giving you the green light.
Damn, so it's NFL legit have the control on everything. But what if you have a team, right, and you want to sell it? You're like, I'm done with this shit. This team is garbage. I want to just sell it. Like, you try and sell it to everyone, but NFL are like, oh, well, you can't sell it. Nope, this person doesn't work. Nope, fuck you. Are you going to be just stuck with that team? Like, are you just going to be stun-locked into that position of owning it? Or are there, you know, different things around that?
The NFL and the team owners are, for all intents and purposes, basically one and the same. On the other side, you have the players who work for the teams basically as contractors rendering their services. If the players don't like their salary or benefits packages, they can collectively get together in a union and threaten a strike to leverage the owners in the NFL to give them what they want. If that doesn't work, then the NFL and its owners can just hire a whole bunch of replacements to play the game if they don't
Yeah.
want to budge. NASCAR, on the other hand, is completely different. In 1969, most drivers are owner drivers, which is exactly what it sounds like. Not only does the guy drive the car he owns, but he also owns the team as well. He decides which of his crew to hire and fire.
Ooh, okay, that's interesting. Isn't there, I don't know, maybe back in the day, there was only one driver per team. But now, isn't there like multiple cars every team? Then it had to be just one driver, right, per team. Because then the owner of the car. Or could you have maybe a co-owner also drive? I don't know.
Sponsorship deals, and what races he wants to run. It would be like if Tom Brady was not only the quarterback for the New England Patriots, but was also the team owner and the GM and got to pick who his coach would be. The board is totally lopsided.
The drivers got all the power
as they
when it comes to
please.
that.
Right now, today, if you own enough money, you can go start a NASCAR team and run races. So long as your cars pass tech inspection and post a qualifying time fast enough to get into the show, NASCAR basically just has to let you compete. And NASCAR can't hire
What?
replacements either. And NASCAR
Wait, I never knew that. It's actually like the motherfuckers that are driving own the fucking team. I thought it was NASCAR that had all the teams, and then people just joined the teams. Like F1 or like most other motorsports. I mean, F1, like the fucking thing, doesn't own the teams. You know, it's like car companies and shit that still join. It's still a bit different because the drivers aren't the fucking owners and shit. Still, that's pretty crazy.
Proprietary car. It can't run anywhere else. It is purpose-built to run according to a NASCAR rules package only. You can't just go buy one off the street and have some yahoo drive it. In 1969, the PDA is allowed to coalesce because NASCAR has way more eyes on it. They have a much bigger fan base than they did earlier in the decade, and as a direct result, they have bigger stars too. Every single star driver is part of the PDA. David Pearson, the Allison brothers, Cale Yarborough, and basically every driver worth talking about save for Bobby Isaac, who is a bit of a loner who has a record of flying his own colors. And who might the president be of the PDA? Well, none other than the king himself, Richard Petty. France can't bring himself to do anything about the PDA because they got way too many cards in their hand too quickly. They got the drop on him, and he can't do anything. So he does exactly
bitch.
that. Nothing. He never acknowledges that the PDA even exists. Journalists ask him about the association and he feigns ignorance, just like it's some fairy tale. If he can't punish the drivers in the PDA, then he'll just act like it doesn't exist to eat away at their credibility. However, the PDA is just as ill-prepared as Goodyear and Firestone to deal with this situation. They hold all the cards, but they don't know how to play them. So the drivers take matters into their own hands. They approach Big Bill France and voice their concerns. It's not about pay or benefits, it's about safety and safety only. They want to postpone the race until a tire compound can be made that can withstand the brutal loads of Talladega. Bill France says no way. They have to race on the original date.
You know what pisses me off? Whenever there's someone in power, you know, if there's a manager on the job, or there's a boss, or whatever the fuck, they can never reason with people. He can't just say, oh, you know what? You're right. Sure, mate. We can change the tyres, we can do whatever, we can, you know, ensure a bit of more safety for you guys. Sure. But obviously, don't do that, because something with like power and our brains, we just switch off and we just change, and you just become a knobhead straight away. Like in every single circumstance, usually the boss or like the top dog, always a prick. Weird how it is like that though.
The race has to go off on race day because a postponement means not making his money back as soon as possible.
Oh yeah, it's about money in it
completion day
as
ran
well.
so close up to race day in the first place. He has to have his money back now. Little cliques start getting formed all over the garage. They're trying to discuss amongst themselves what they think they should do. Do they stay and hope Goodyear can bring in good tires, or do they continue with the protests and say they're not going to run? Some drivers even talk openly about a potential
Yeah, but what I don't get is that he can't really, like the guy, I don't really remember his name, but you know, the dickhead, wouldn't he just fuck everything up if these lot just didn't drive? I mean, if everyone's against them and everyone's unionized, can't they just say, right, lot, we don't think it's safe, let's just not jump in the cars and not do this race? What the fuck is he gonna do then? Doubt he's got replacements ready. Like, it's just gonna fuck up the entire thing. So he's gonna have to acknowledge them, or he's gonna have to do something. I don't know how he's even got the option of ignoring them.
Bill France tries to ease tensions by buying an old race car and taking it out for a few laps, just to show that there's nothing wrong with the track. Instead of easing everybody's tensions, he only makes things worse. Drivers point out that he was only puttering around at about 160 miles an hour, well short of what they were doing out there. Bill says, well, why don't you guys just race at that speed then? But that's just a slap in the face to say something like that to a racer. It's an affront to everything racing stands for. Even if they tried that out there, somebody would push the envelope and somebody else would respond, and they'd all wind up racing at 190 miles an hour anyway. At some point during these group powwows on Friday, Bill France is talking it out with Bobby Allison and Leroy Yarborough. When Big Bill France says to Bobby Allison, 15-time winner in the NASCAR Grand National Division at this point, and the winner of the last race just a week prior, quote, I think you're just afraid to race. At this point, according to Bobby Allison to this day, he says that Leroy Yarborough stepped out from behind him and swung and hit Bill France in the face. putting it on the
Damn.
ground. Leroy then turns around and says to his group,
Shit's
boys, pack
crazy.
up your stuff, we're leaving. That was the trigger the PDA needed. All at once, every single PDA driver packs up their stuff and leaves Talladega Superspeedway.
That's what I'm saying, just fuck
there
off.
There are only 3 holdouts.
What is he
going
gonna
to
do?
mention Bobby Isaac, who sees an opportunity to make a run at the championship points lead now that all of his competition is left. 2, a non-PDA driver named Jim Vandiver driving for a team owned by Ray Fox. And 3, a PDA driver turned scab who will race anyway. His name is Richard Brickhouse.
Oh, these
He
are
races for
balls,
the same
man.
team as Bobby Isaac, a factory-owned team financed by
If
the
everyone's
Chrysler
leaving 'cause
Corporation.
it's fucking
Chrysler
dangerous.
Corp wants to debut their brand
I
new
don't know
car,
about that.
the Dodge Charger Daytona. A car supposedly capable of speeds exceeding 200 miles an hour. But this week, that won't happen. The tires just won't allow it. Next year, it will dominate the schedule and win the championship. In 1971, NASCAR will ban its use entirely. But here in 1969, Chrysler just wants someone to drive their car for their flagship team. The car owner of the number 99 Dodge approaches Richard as soon as the walkout happens and tells him, if you don't drive this car on Sunday, somebody else will. Thus, that is his reason for turning scab and not participating in the walkout. Honestly, if you were in his shoes, you'd find it hard to say no too. You have a chance to win your first race and show off in this brand new Dodge Daytona. It's an opportunity that only comes once in a young racer's career, and that's if you're extremely lucky. Richard knows this and vows to race on Sunday. Had NASCAR been, say, a
Peer pressure,
Midwestern or
man.
Northeastern sport instead of a Southern sport, somewhere where union culture existed, then there wouldn't have just been a walkout. This is Alabama in the 1960s, and organizing something like that is all but unheard of. The drivers in the PDA never try to picket. As a matter of fact, the topic is never even brought up. The drivers never even think to make a picket line. They just pack up and head home. NASCAR fans aren't too sure what to make of it. So Big Bill France makes sure to tell them what to think about it. He offers up an unbeatable deal. If you buy a ticket to the Talladega 500, then you can use that stub to get into the Daytona 500 next year. The fans jump on it. They come in
What?
droves to watch the shit show in Talladega County in September and
Damn,
get free tickets
bruh.
to Daytona in February to boot. But what about the race itself? You
Shit,
can't
I would
just put
fucking
3
buy it.
cars on a 2.66 mile
2 tickets in
speedway
one.
for 500 miles, right? You're exactly right, Bill France says to himself. So he goes and raids the field from the 400-mile preliminary race on Saturday, a race from a completely different series. They race sports cars in that division, not stock cars. Instead of Chevelles, Torinos, and Roadrunners, they race Camaros, Mustangs, and even one AMC Javelin. They can barely do 160 with the wind at their backs, let alone pass tech inspection. So what does France do? He just changes the rules. That's it. He just does it like it's totally normal. Just declares all the cars legal, and that's that. Actually competitive cars being driven by 2 young guys no one's ever heard of, and Bobby Isaac, NASCAR's biggest loner, and a field full of cars well off the pace. The
Wait,
stage is all
what?
but set for a disaster to occur, and it does. But not in the way you'd expect. That tire problem we've been talking about, at the
Oh,
last
fuck.
second, that morning before race day, Goodyear flies in some new tires, and they held up surprisingly well. There wasn't a single tire
Ooh.
failure that day. And the lower division
Okay.
cars filling in the field, they're running the same tires they ran the day before without a single issue. And I don't mean the
Jeez.
same sets, like they had several sets of tires they would change out during the race. No, they pitted for fuel in that division only. These guys ran an entire race for 400 miles on a single set of tires and then turned around and did another 500-mile race the next day with no
Holy
issues.
fuck.
Just what did they make tires out of back then?
That is nuts.
Richard Brickhouse and Jim Vandiver are running 1-2 all day long, and according to the radio call, which someone bothered to record, they voiced some confusion in the running order and then announced that Jim Vandiver was the leader.
Jim Vandiver in the lead. Here's Richard Brickhouse getting around Jim Vandiver as he goes around. So that gives him advantage there. He's made up one of those laps.
That's right,
What?
we have a potential scoring error even though there are only 2 competitive cars out there on the track. Later, when the checkered flag flies, NASCAR announces Richard Brickhouse as the winner. Vandiver and his car owner Ray Fox are livid. They contend to this day that they won that race that day, and that the scoring error wasn't an accident. I can't confirm this, but it really wouldn't
Damn.
surprise me if it turned out to be true, but the
Might
rumor
have been
persists
rigged.
that it was Chrysler Corp that sweet-talked Bill France into inventing the scoring error, because they wanted their new model of Dodge to win over Jim Vandiver, who was driving the older model. It probably would have
Oh.
looked bad if the brand new 1970 Dodge Charger Daytona had lost
Dude.
to the old 1969
Dude, it's
Dodge
all
Charger.
corrupt, man.
Despite the protests, Richard
all
Brickhouse is declared
rigged.
the winner, and Jim Vandiver is placed in second. Richard Brickhouse would enjoy his win about as much as you would imagine, but all 3 of these drivers who did not participate in the walkout would wind up being cursed in some way. Bobby Isaac would go on to win the 1970 championship in the winged Charger Daytona, but in 1977, he would park his car in the middle of a 200-lap event at Hickory Motor Speedway and collapse. He was resuscitated and taken to the hospital where it seemed as though he had made a full recovery, but later that night he would die of a heart attack caused by complications from heat exhaustion. Richard Brickhouse and Jim Vandiver would never go on to win another race or even be competitive. As a matter of fact, in the very next race, Richard was spun out by a PDA driver who had walked out of Talladega. And this picture depicting the incident was taken so clearly because a PDA driver had told the photographer where to stand in order to get the best shot. The PDA disbanded just a few weeks later, their best shot at getting some leverage. No talks of unionization ever came up after that race.
Holy fuck, that is crazy,
It was their
man.
best shot and they had failed. So that was all there was to it. The worst race in NASCAR history. A brand new car no one got to see the full potential of that day. Only 3 competitive drivers, 2 of the 3 of which nobody knew about. A field full of filler cars. A tire scandal that was resolved at the 11th hour. And of those 2 unknown drivers who were competitive, no one knows which one actually won the race to this day.
I mean, what in the fuck? I thought this was gonna be like the worst race ever in terms of like everyone crashed or there was something wrong with the tires where everyone just fucked up, where it was just a clusterfuck of just absolute diabolical things happening during the entire race. But you know, it was mainly what happened outside of the race, which is what, you know, was interesting about this. It's crazy how there can be so much like corruption and just like bullshit that goes on for a race that isn't even about the race. It's about making money and just like, I don't fucking know, just doing things because you can do it, you know, and because you got the power. I did not expect this video to be about all that stuff, but yeah. It's also interesting about those tires, how they could just 180 that shit. I thought the tires were the main antagonist of this fucking race. But yeah, it's funny that everyone from the PDA just fucked off because they thought it was unsafe. And then these lot had 0 problems, no crashes, anything. That's a bit funny that they could have just done it if they waited. Interesting video to say the least. Hope you enjoyed this reaction. It was a bit of a long one, but yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe to the channel also. And go check out my gaming channel, which is also in the description. So go check that out, and I will be in your debt forever. I will see you later.